How often do you play a game that you feel shows what the medium is capable of in ways that you don't usually think about? When I see games that are often regarded as the best of the medium, especially these days, it's usually a game that feels Hollywoodified in one way or another. A cool story, conventionally pretty graphics, and good music. All factors contribute to a game's overall quality, of course. Every game, let alone every piece of art, is a sum of its parts. But what I mean is a game that uses the fact that it exists in an interactive medium to its fullest, expressing its artistic merit by being a video game, something movies and TV shows could never hope to pull off. That's why Katamari Damacy is such a breath of fresh air. It's not out to impress you in means that are conventional, instead opting to show you a cool and original idea and simply let said idea speak for itself. It's so committed to this bit that even its control scheme is strange and uncanny, utilizing nothing but the two analog sticks, moving them in tandem for basic movement or tilting in opposite directions for steering, plus the click of the sticks for an instant 180 turn. There's also a waggle dash if you want your controllers to succumb to drift faster. It definitely takes more than a few minutes to get used to, but it's not so hard to grasp that it feels like it's trying too hard to be unique. I'm just impressed by how the game makes such a simple but strong use of control scheme that it changes the very dynamic of using a controller. It almost feels like it demands a special apparatus like an arcade game, but it still totally works with any dual analog controller. A big part of why it works is because I definitely get the sense that the jank of this game is fully intentional, that you're meant to feel barely in control of your own movement, especially when you're new and unpracticed. It's a rare game where the awkwardness of the controls is where the game's difficulty stems from, which is a very brave thing to do, considering how awkward controls can take a game very far south. Katamari has a simple goal, rolling up objects that are smaller than your ball, absorbing them into it, and allowing it to get larger so it can roll up bigger objects. The bigger you get by the end of the level, the more pleased the King of the Cosmos will be. To me, something feels especially standout when it's both simple to understand and unique, playing into that why has nobody thought of this factor, because there truly is nothing quite like Katamari out there, and that nonconformity lends the game so much staying power. It doesn't purely rely on just one idea carrying it though. There's also unique objectives in the constellation stages, albeit most of them are essentially the same thing. Rather than strictly getting larger being the goal, you have to collect as many crabs as possible, or grab as many matching pairs. You have a goal per level, but this is a score attack game, and the game will do a lot to egg you on to try harder, especially through, the king's encouraging pep talks. Getting as large as possible in a given stage is its own fun though, figuring out what best routes to go for and getting a feel for what objects you can pick up at what sizes. It's a puzzle game at heart in that way, which is neat because you don't usually associate puzzle games with fast-paced and sometimes frantic action. It's all to try to impress the king, who isn't afraid of calling your Katamari mid as hell. For me, it fires up a little I'll show you dad instinct in me, though I can understand the king's demeaning attitude can be discouraging more than anything for some people. I think it helps that right away they established him as not a very good father figure. Dude has a drunk stupor one night and breaks the entire sky, waking up the next morning like, whoopsie, good thing I have a son or else I'd have to fix this. Often feels like a relic from old games that aren't afraid of bad-mouthing the player's ability, though at least in this case it's usually written in good humor. You can very much get away with playing the game at the bare minimum level, and deservedly testing this man's patience. But practicing the game over and over again to finally earn the praise of a dude who is routinely difficult to impress is oh so satisfying. This game is more than just a strange new dish you've never seen before though, as it largely uses its absurd gameplay conceit to play into the bizarre setting. Everything going on around you is like an ongoing absurdist gag, with things only making sense because the characters present are so nonchalant about what's happening. Everything is chaotic, but I don't care. This game's sense of humor is very cute. The king has a lot of amusing dialogue, but what I really love is all the sight gags the game pulls off, whether it has crabs made of household objects, or a guy riding a bear that shoots across the screen via rocket propulsion. It also feels very slapstick in gameplay as well, with how some mobs will send you careening in different directions, or how picking up a long object at a weird angle can actually change how your Katamari rolls. It's very amusing to just roll up on a crowd of people that were having fun until you showed up. Like, it's funny to imagine today was just a normal day until a giant ball of debris came out of nowhere and ate Jimmy. It also helps with hand-waving a lot of things away. Like, you destroy the same town several times over in this game, and it's just fine in the next level. Jimmy got rolled into a ball and flung into space where he got turned into fuel to keep a star burning, but he got better. The sound design works a lot to make the game a serotonin factory, with a satisfying click that really makes rolling over a big row of objects feel so fantastic. Not to mention, as you get larger, the objects you're rolling up starts making noises like screaming, car horns blaring, cargo ship horns blasting. Just listen to all this mayhem you're causing. You're doing this. This game's eccentricities really reinforce the toy box-esque feel to the title. The way this game handles its visual style very much feels that way. It's like messing around and bashing all the toys in your room together. It has a lot of low poly models, but utilizes that in a way that feels very unmistakably Katamari. It also serves well to have as many objects on screen as possible, since, obviously, things are going to be a little visually busy. Smart design on top of being very visually distinct. This game also makes sure you can't get stuck. It roadblocks an area with objects that are too large for you to be interacting with just yet. Plus, if you manage to get wedged between two things and can't move, it'll eject objects until you're small enough to get back out. Both a safety measure and a punishment so you avoid getting stuck in the first place. This game is very intelligently designed, which makes it surprising to see it doesn't have a retry button. At least not outside of essentially being booted back to the main menu. Like, couldn't the remaster have had this at least? Sometimes I just have a bad start and want to start over. It is the one thing missing, but it's a pretty glaring omission. The game is short and sadly lacking a little on the variety. All the main levels have the same goal of reaching a certain size before the time limit and seeing how far you can overachieve. The constellation levels are there for a bit more themed variety, but it still just amounts to roll up as many things as you see. Just, it's counting crabs and swans rather than strictly size. There are the Ursa Major and Taurus levels, which force you to be a bit more careful and strategic, since picking up exactly one bear or cow immediately ends the level. Perhaps a little too precise, given how clumsy movement feels a lot of the time. Said that clumsy movement is fine in levels where you're not that punished for not moving in exactly the way you wanted, as opposed to here, where even the tiniest nudge in the wrong direction can ruin the last 6 minutes. Even then, I find this game hard to get legit angry at. It absolutely feels like the game's throwing pie in your face during moments like these, but it's in a way that feels like only Katamari can really get away with. I wish there were more levels like Make the North Star, where the time limit is lifted and the challenge is squarely on how close to a target size you can get without having the measurement at the top to let you know what size you're at. There's sadly only one of these levels, when I feel like the game could have done with a few more. That said though, this game is the perfect length for what it is. It has just enough content to charm you and be a lot of fun, as well as to have the score attack elements to keep you playing levels over and over. But it doesn't have so much that you feel like the game has outstayed its welcome or run out of ideas at any point. Games rarely have that kind of confidence, usually finding ways to pad things out to feign bang for your buck, but if anyone justifies that confidence, yeah, it's Katamari.